The Book of Honey, by Isadora Rochas, Chapter 10, Free Dive, August 11, 2030, 10:35 p.m. William, learning how to work with honey was like nothing else I've ever done. I've worked with field commanders and assets for every branch of service. Honey was by far the most particular and demanding person I've ever worked with. That is saying something after working with Beck since I was 18. Early on, when I was trying to understand what I was doing, I missed reading a translation, which caused us to lose a target, giving away that something was going on. The side honey was feeding us information about changing their plans. This meant that honey had to do the same thing twice, only now I've made it harder. The person was on guard to being watched and followed. She called me only once to say to me, "William, I don't like wasting my time doing things twice. You said you could now do it." Click. That was all she said. I checked and rechecked everything from then on with precision and speed. The only reason Beck allowed me to work with him is I earned a level 5 clearance for sensitive information. Beck had encouraged me if I was going to keep working with different branches of service from both the UK and the United States. That would go a long way to getting me in the door to most places that deal with information and intelligence work. I was qualified to handle all the information about honey that was given to me. Beck didn't let me jump in right off. He had me test the waters by making me shadow him a couple of times before I was released to swim on my own. I paid close attention to Beck when shadowing him handling honey, especially over long distances. It was a lot of paying attention to her instructions. When we didn't, a job often fell out and we would have to start over once honey has made the adjustment for us on her end. Beck's dealing with honey was strange to me. Beck was well known for his crotchety attitude and rules that must be followed when he oversaw something. That was not the Bruce Beck I saw handling honey. She said a certain phrase, he would sit up and listen to her every word. Their accents became thicker, and they started talking in a relaxed way. They sounded like neighbors chatting over a fence. The first time I heard them use the flavor of pie talk when they were talking about a person she needed us to investigate, couldn't let on she was talking about more than just delicious pastries. I was so close to losing it a couple of times when I heard them go on for minutes, ignoring everything to hear what she had to say, treating honey like everything she said was worth gold. Beck had never once in all the time I've known him ever handled someone with such care. This made me wonder who honey was. I have been following Bruce Beck's career since the first time I'd met him. I was hooked and needed to know how he ticked. I told myself I want to be a man like Bruce Beck when I grow up. After walking through a door, Beck has any situation completely under his control. Nobody denies Beck anything. Stone cold face of nothing. I have watched men sweat through shirts and jackets being stared down by Bruce Beck. At first I started out as a translator. Slowly Beck started handing me more of the responsibility. He let me help transcribing, organize the data he's gathered. Once this operation is over, Beck wants a fully organized and summarized report on what's been gathered and what information would benefit which allies best. Then we would start breaking things down. Then it was hours of decoding messages and reports she makes in a shorthand language that uses as few syllables and letters to convey simple messages. Then there was the complicated one that she would use to send complete details. Honey was right when there would be days when I would regret my taking of this task. Honey tried to keep us in the loop of her whereabouts and what she was doing during that time. I learn about the heartless and cruel side of humanity. The very darkest part of humanity ever imagined. How one human being could do such a thing to another, let alone one human doing this to thousands and millions in their lifetime. There have been days when I must pack up my bag and head straight to the training gym. After a day of reading over some of the things honey was going through to get us this intel, a pit grew in my chest, and the only thing that could relieve it was training in the gym. Mindlessly punching a bag or teaching new patroller some grabs and holds. This would clear my head, so I could get back to work. I went to the gym a lot during the time I was working as Honey's communication expert. At nights I didn't sleep much as I was using the extra time in Beck's secret room memorizing codes, keys, and keeping straight what profiles went to which blogs. Then about a month into it I had finally gotten all the blogs and codes memorized. Everything went smoothly, which surprised me when Honey asked me for the first time about a direction she was wanting to go. I gave a few sound ideas. Occasionally she'd message me a one-word comment or an almost thankful statement. There were some times when weeks went by, I didn't hear a word from her. I would feel such a sense of relief to have confirmation that she was alive 2 days ago. That her fighting month was over, and she would be working towards more goals. Dreading the void, she left for days with no word or sign that she was out there. It was the longest 8 months, full of surveillancing and nibbling at the edges. Honey added 2 more blocks to her messaging system. Honey's intel was accurate on a scary level of perfection. Things changed as the other side started moving. Her tips come in, our adjustments are made. Weeks of this back and forth game went on till Honey sent a note in a sandwich bag. Uncle Bruce, coming for a visit in 2 days. Beck called me to say, William, it's happening tomorrow night down in the warehouse on a commercial airfield. We need to be circling our people. William, it's your job to intercept our girl. If she's with Victoria, you have to follow her lead. I say, I understand. Beck had brought some of his associates from the SIS to help him out. We start bringing people in 2 at a time. Stashing them inside warehouses, adding guards in security uniforms, and airfield workers unloading things. Beck and I were on the comms and cameras keeping our eyes and ears open. Hours passed and nothing stirred. Suddenly the airfield closest to the main road, cars pull into the hangar at the end of the airfield. The doors were closed, but our eyes on the inside were working. A car, 2 trucks, and a large van were parked. Men jumping out, they looked like ex-military. They circled the car where a large bald man stepped out. I assumed that was Manford Cross. I had seen old surveillance photos of the man, but they didn't do him justice, being more than 15 years old. The man was over 7 feet tall. His eyes were a piercing icy blue-gray color. There was a blade scar on his face that seemed fresh. His beard was shaved close. Mr. Cross wore all black combat gear made for fighting. His eyes were scanning the area. We were warned not to make our equipment too obvious. Then the van opened, and out popped our girl. Wearing a black and yellow striped hoodie, her pants were skin-tight and black, well-worn sneakers were on her feet. Honey's posture was head down, hoodie up, scanning. The last to exit the vehicles was a redhead. She is tall and thin. Green eyes, dressed like a high-class businesswoman in a green pinstriped suit and heels that match. Her face was covered with an eye mask. That was Victoria Montenegro. Cross fell behind Victoria, Honey, behind Cross. Victoria is on the phone until there was the sound of an airplane overhead.
Honey, waiting in the hangar. Victoria is going on about some deal she's working on. I've been keeping tabs on it. I still haven't heard about what it might be. As I have taken a glance here and there, I've already spotted both cameras. If no one else sees, it's not my business. 30 minutes pass, then we all look when the sounds of an airplane are heard. Then Victoria chimes in. Here we go, everyone to your places. My Leona B, you go and get the door. Keep your eyes open outside. I hurry over to the door and press the button on the panel. Slowly the door slides up. The plane glides in and lands, then pulls in. This part always makes my stomach clench. Victoria stands back as men with guns usher kids and teens down a ramp. I turn towards the door. I scan as far as my eyes could. I didn't see anyone as I closed the doors behind us. I say, all is clear outside. Victoria tells me, good Leona B, let's get started. Line them up for me to see. After all the kids are lined up and Victoria gives them the look over. She puts red stickers on the one she wants. green stickers for her garden and a yellow sticker for the one she was letting me and Manfred take to keep until they ripen up, as she likes to tell us. A mixed 20 or so teens and young children. The beautiful ones will go to Victoria's garden. She uses them to trade favors with powerful people and get them to collect their secrets. Others will be sent off to be entertainers in other areas. Manfred and I oversee feeding and housing all of them at our compounds as we travel. Victoria tagged all the ones she wanted we loaded up. My mind was wondering when Bruce was going to strike. Must be when we were on the road. The guy with the plane took off. Our little convoy packed up and we were on the road. Victoria was the first to go. She was gone. The rest of us followed truck, van, truck. I rode shotgun with my van man, Dan. I oversaw keeping the kids quiet. We were on the road for about 10 minutes when I noticed something wrong. The lights in the airfield were out, but so were all the street's lamps going up to the bridge. I hate it when I'm right. We made it to the center of the bridge when light and sounds exploded all around us. This is an international task force. You are surrounded. Please step out with your hands up. Do not resist or shots will be fired. This is repeated twice more. I thought to myself, good timing, William, but I knew that was never going to happen with Victoria. I knew where he was coming from. If William was behind us, Uncle Bruce would be at the head. After the last announcement, Victoria communicated to us. We're gunning it through this side. Do whatever it takes to make a break. We all hear ahead of us the revving of an engine. Victoria traveled in a tank-like car, so unless they took an AK-47 to it, there will be no stopping her. Manfred was ex-military, and he was used to driving these kinds of vehicles. There was a skid out, and seconds later there was an explosion. A defense that Manfred had installed in her car, blowing a hole through the blockade. Once she passed Uncle Bruce's side, the van was left between two crews of maniacs with guns. They started lighting up both sides of the bridge. I went back with the kids. Everyone keep as flat as you can, cover your heads, and don't get up till all the noises die. Dan, can you swim? He says. If the occasion calls for it. I tell him. Well, if you don't want to get caught, jump into the water. Here's a life jacket. I'll jump when it's all clear. I started untying my shoes and taking off my socks. They wouldn't do me any good to keep them. Dan opened the door, and just as he was about to jump, a shot got him in the back. Slowly the bullets stopped flying. I whispered in the ear of Dragonfly. She nodded at me. I could hear the approach of footsteps. I opened the van on the passenger side. I looked at the damage to my left and right. The men in the trucks were dead. Men in riot gear stopped to check the bodies. William was heading up the group closest to me. He was not wearing a suit like in Uncle Bruce's office. Dressed in heavy gear, carrying a rifle. He saw me and I saw him. My heart was racing. I unzipped my jacket, threw it over my shoulder, stepped out of the van, and faced William. He shouted at me. Don't move, get on the ground, put your hands on your head. I yell back. I am unarmed, and you don't want to be shooting. There are kids in this van, and it would be terrible if any die to one of your bullets. William gives the command not to shoot and repeats his last statement to me. I was never going to listen to him. I smile at him in my most bone-chilling way. He warned me one last time as he started approaching me. Right before I say, "Too bad." William stops in his tracks as I take off my shirt and my pants, wad them up, and toss them in William's stunned face. In nothing but my sports bra and boxers, I turned and ran, and a couple of shots were fired before William and Uncle Bruce were on both sides yelling, "Hold your fire!" It was too late. I was out of their reach. I jumped over the bodies on the bridge. I got to the railing, took a deep breath. I dived into the river. I went under the water, holding my breath. I swam in the filthy water downstream as far as I could before coming up for air. By then I was miles downriver. Hours later, I crawled out of the water on the north side of the river, making it to my feet somehow, and I walked to a tree. I gave myself 5 minutes to pull my shit together and get a move on. I take this time to think about my options and assess the damage to myself. Making it to London was very important. South will take me there. Once I'm there, do I just go back to the CEOs, or is this the point I take myself out of the equation? I pat myself down. I was bruised from the jump. I was lucky William and Bruce were on top of their people. I was a little sore, but all in all breathing and moving. I found the small baggie with about $1,000 in 20-pound notes. I stand and start walking towards the lights. Looking closely, I was in the graveyard of a church. I looked around and there was a donations box for clothes. I busted the lock, and the only thing I found was an ugly floral dress. I hate dresses, but with little else I put it on. High heels were the only shoes in the box, but I refused to wear them. I would rather walk barefoot than snap my feet in those. I did take a straw sun hat to tie around my neck. I hung a bag on the outside of the bin and wrote sorry I was cold and left 60 pounds. Walking along the road, the sky was dark and the clouds were thick, and lightning was dancing from cloud to cloud. Not long after walking, the clouds burst open. I placed the hat on my head. It wasn't enough to keep me from getting drenched. At first, it wasn't bad. The night had been warm. The rain was pleasant, washing the grime from the river off me. It made the dirt on the side of the road soft on my feet. After a while, the rain got heavier and drenched me completely. I began shivering in the dark. All I could do was keep going. I followed the road as well as I could. The last thing I wanted was to be picked up on this road by anyone. I would stop and hide on the ground if I thought someone was coming. So, I spent the time making my cover story while keeping my eyes out. After 5 hours in the rain, before it let up, I am freezing after miles of dark houses and roads. I came across a place called the Wonky Donkey. The sign outside said it was an animal rescue and sanctuary. There was a visitor center. I was hoping with this farm, the people got up early. It was a little bit, but someone crossed the parking lot gates. I called out, "Hello." A woman turned her head slowly and is startled. "Wow, you started me?" I say. "Sorry for the scare, but I'm in a bit of trouble. Please help me." She looked me up and down, shivering with no shoes on. "Dear Lord, what happened to ye?" I say. "Would you let me in, so I can warm up, 'cause I'm freezing?" She said. Yeah, come on and tell me what happened to ye." She takes me into an office, sits me down and gets me a blanket and a cup of tea with some biscuits while I spin my tale. I'm an American backpacker traveling from the north of Scotland to the south of England. I made a detour to walk the trails of Blacktop Sands. I stopped on the way and fell asleep under a tree. I must have been so tired that by the time I woke up, it was dark and all my stuff was gone. My bags, my phone, they even took my shoes I put in my bags before I fell asleep. She says, "That is a bad streak of luck you got there." I say, "Yeah, I know, but I was lucky they didn't do anything while I was sleeping. And they didn't search me too thoroughly because I stashed about 400 on me taped to the inside of my underwear." She says, That was smart thinking. I told her. I did it just in case. Anyways, I woke up on the trail and got lost without my compass and GPS because it's been cloudy. I came across a place called Guli, but it was late and Sunday, everything was already closed. So, I just kept walking and here I am. She says. This is a hell of a tale. What's your name? I told her. I'm Nora Damon. She introduces herself. Hello, I'm Jenny. Welcome to the Wonky Donkey Rescue and Sanctuary. So what do you want me to do, take you somewhere? I asked her. Call me a cab to take me to London. My uncle lives there, and I was staying there before I started my walking trip. She asks me. Do you need to call anyone? I shake my head. Sadly, I don't know his number because it was in my phone. If you had a change of clothes. Jenny nods and says. Yeah, no problem. Jenny got me a change of clothes from the gift shop. She even had a spare set of old rubber boots. I said. Thank you. She called a cab while I was changing. Then she drives me to a nearby town of Sheffield to meet up with the cab. She even waits with me for an hour and talks about the animal rescue and shelter project she started with her mom. It was awesome, and I even gave her $60 for all the help she gave me and that I would make an even bigger donation to the Wonky Donkey when I got home. She had to get back before opening time. I was left to wait alone. I was grateful for the silence. It was a 4-hour drive to London. I had him drop me off at the London Eye. From there things were familiar. I went to my hidey hole and retrieved my extra clothes. I almost cried at the sight of blue jeans and my delivery outfit. The first thing I did was use my spare phone to update my blogs about what happened. Then I gave Bruce a meeting time and place. I had to be careful because I could just as easily be picked up by Victoria's people. William, there before me stood Honey, and just as fast as she could she stripped to her underpants and jumped off a bridge. Into the cold water of the Humber, and she was gone. I stood there stunned until Beck came and slapped me on the shoulder. He says loudly, William, look alive, we have business to conduct. He leans in and whispers, our girl will surface and leave us a sign. I say, yeah, I just wasn't expecting that. You are sure I shouldn't go? And Beck had already cut me off. For her sake, no, now get a hold of yourself, you're my lead on this, I'm just watching. I asked Beck. Did you know? He lifted his eyebrow at me and that shut me up. I nod. You're right. Out of all the men that were on the bridge, only 3 were alive, 1 unconscious but mildly wounded. There were over 10 dead. Our side suffered minor wounds. Beck's side was the worst after Cross and Victoria blasted their way through, and we have people pursuing them by air. Honey was the only one they had no accounting for whatsoever. She was out there on her own, and that bothered me. But life must press on. I turned my attention to the van. We opened it, and inside were children, 24 or so altogether, as old as about 16 to as young as 4 and 5. They started to assess injuries and take them out of the van one at a time to not overwhelm them. There was one girl that kept looking at me. So, I walked over to see if there was something she needed. I asked her, is there anything I can do for you? She nods and says, there was a girl in the van with us. You're holding her hoodie. Is your name William? I say, yes, it is. I'm paying close attention. She is giving me a look that could shatter glass. When the girl said, She said that the good-looking guy with the dark blue eyes and the nice face was about to come and rescue us. Tell William Sheeran not to lose my favorite hoodie. It has a lot of pockets and everything you could ever need. This girl said that with a lot of attitude. I smirked at that. Was there anything else? She shook her head. No, but is she going to be okay? I said. I think she will be just fine. The girl leans in close. If you see Miss Honey again, tell her thank you from Dragonfly. I will do that for you. It was almost 6 hours on that bridge. Once all the evidence was gathered back and I headed back to his apartment to crash. I told him about the hoodie I kept on me, so we examined it without anyone seeing it. We searched it thoroughly. She left us a cache of information. Honey managed to get the names of all her overseas officers and hosts, the location of all the compounds in Europe, the biggest client list, and the name of her offshore accounts where her money is kept. I look at it carefully and am gobsmacked. Beck, she has just given you their entire operation in an alphabetized pile. Have you checked to see if she has left any messages? Beck says. I'm doing that now. Well, look what we have here. It will take me some time to decrypt what the message says. Catch some Z's and I will be working on this. Then I said. Beck, you take the nap. I will get this done 10 times faster. He asks me. William, are you getting too big for your britches? I tell him. No sir, I'm just stating the facts. I will get this done faster than you. Beck holds up his hands and lets me get to work.